Hey everyone! This brief lecture we're going to take a look at the Battle of Marathon. Despite the fact that this battle only lasted about 2 days, it's considered by many to be a very significant battle in that had the Greeks lost, it likely would have changed the world forever. We'll talk more about that later. The lecture worksheet that goes along with these notes is not designed to be completed until you have finished watching the lecture or the other related links that are attached to the video. So make sure that you watch the lecture first, supplement it with any of the other available resources that are attached, and then complete Lecture 2 worksheet. So now with that, let's get going. With all these battles, there are some important facts that we need to discuss before we actually look at this particular Battle of Marathon. To do this, we're going to kind of do it systematically, looking at it through our 5 W's. The who, the where, the why, the when, and what happened. So let's take a look. The who is, in the Battle of Marathon, is between the Persian army versus the Athenian army. The Persian army consisted of King Darius I of Persia, and as you can see, if you look at the map here, Persia is this whole area here in brown. At the time, they had what was considered probably the largest empire in the world, and with that, they had a massive amount of resources and troops. And then if you look way off to the left here, you've got Greece, way down here. And in Greece is the small little city-state of Athens, which is like kind of right where I'd put that little dot there. So we had this huge army with all these resources battling this one little city-state. The odds certainly look in the favor of the Persian army. Now the where. The where took place on the shores of the Aegean Sea, which is right near the Mediterranean Sea, obviously. It was on an area nearby what's known as a small city of Marathon, on a marshy plain right next to the shoreline. So pretty flat land, kind of marshy, and it's actually set between 2 rivers, which we'll see in a few minutes. So, if we zoom in to take a look at the location, you can kind of see with the arrows exactly where Marathon is. Small little area inside the peninsula there, right by the Bay of Marathon. And just to the left of that, because here's Marathon right around there on the shoreline, and just to the left of that is Athens, about 26 miles away. So Athens was kind of in control of this whole area, but the Athenian army knew that the Persians were coming. So they got all their troops together that they could, and ran for the shoreline to try and head off the Persian forces. Why? The Persians wanted to invade and conquer Greece. They were actually ticked off at the Athenians having helped what was known as the Ionian Revolt, which was about 8 years earlier. When did this happen, this Battle of Marathon? In about 490 BC. It was either August or September, depending on the calendars and how they link up with our calendar today, but it was roughly in late August to early or mid-September of 490 BC. So, now we're going to see what happened. And this is where you kind of have to pay attention a little bit, because it gets kind of interesting on how this whole battle set out. We're going to actually look at the battle plan and how it all played out between this teeny little city-state of Athens and the massive military might of the Persians. Here is the shoreline of the area near Marathon where the battle took place. Once the Athenians got wind that the Persians were coming, they quickly marched their troops to this area to meet the Persians. As you can see, the area was only about 1.5 miles wide between these 2 rivers. So from here to here was only about 1.5 miles wide. Now that sounds like a heck of a wide area to have a battle, especially when there was mostly people on foot. But when you're talking thousands upon thousands of troops, that area filled up pretty fast. To the northeast here, we had the Athenian army come down here, and they had about 9,000 troops. And when they got there, they set up 3 sections of troops. One thin area in the center, and 2 thicker areas on the sides, or what's known as their flanks. When the Persians came, they had already won several battles on a lot of smaller islands as they were coming closer to this area, but as they came in their boats from the Aegean Sea, they set up a whole bunch of other troops. They had actually set up about 7 different sections of troops. They had troops in the front, they had troops in the back, some reinforcements. So as you can see, they had a whole bunch of different troop lines. The Persians had somewhere between 9,000 and 26,000 troops. We're not exactly sure. I'm sorry, correction, they had about 26,000 troops. I apologize. About 26,000 troops. So compare the 26,000 troops to the 9,000 Athenians. Who do you think is going to win? Seems pretty obvious, right? It was going to be a slaughter. At least that's what the Persians expected. Once the battle started, the Athenian troops noticed that the cavalry, or the troops on horseback, were actually on the back lines of their area. The cavalry was back here, the troops on horses. Once the Athenians realized this, they quickly got together and started pushing their troops forward. Now, obviously, the Athenians knew that they were well outnumbered. What the Athenians had going for them, though, was they had strong armor for protection as compared to the Persians, who didn't have as much. So the Athenian army goes and creates this very thin line of forces up the center here. Very thin set of troops to kind of get their attention. So you see this thin line. The Persians are looking at this saying, what are they thinking? There's this thin line of troops. We can easily clobber them. So as the Athenian troops get closer and closer, the Persian troops take their men and just start pounding away, pounding at this thin line. But because the Athenians had such strong armor, they were able to withhold a lot of casualties. So as the Athenians are holding that back to the Persians, and the Persians are pushing more forces forward, what they didn't recognize was that on the flanks, or the outside, the Athenians started pulling in from the sides into their flanks. This thereby surrounding them virtually, preventing them from getting past. Eventually, as the battle wears on, a lot of the main commanders of the Persians are killed, leaving a lot of chaos going on throughout the ranks of the Persians. Eventually, they were able to get these Persians into such disarray, they ended up trying to retreat back to the water where all of their troops and troop boats, or the remaining of their troops and the troop boats, were at. So these guys ended up retreating back as the Athenians pushed them back to the water. Worked out pretty well. Alright? So, the Persians are retreating, the Athenians are pushing them back, but all these troops that were able to get onto their boats and sail away. However, not all the Persians were able to get on the boats. So the Athenian army is still pounding on to whatever is left. Finally, after about 3 hours, the Athenians were able to conquer whoever was left at Marathon. However, you'd think that would be the end of the story. The Persians have lost. They're in retreat. But that's not what ended up happening. So hold on to your hats for a moment.